let's talk about Godeena by Stepan Verisavac-Kobets. Hello everyone, welcome back to A Fictional Escapist. My name is Kris, and today's video is the Godeena book review. Before we jump into the review, make sure you're checking the description box down below for links to my Discord and social media, should you want to come along for the ride. Now, jumping in, Stepan was an author that reached out to me a while ago, wanting some insight into his writing, not having English as a first language, and just wanted to get an idea of what an audience might be looking for in terms of his work, and he presented me with Godeena. I will say Godeena was a fast-paced, military-based sci-fi which follows a very familiar formula for the genre. We, as the reader, jump in pretty much straight away and we follow Major Henry Broncon, who has been tasked with a dangerous mission, just having been awarded a medal for bravery in his assault against the Anscars. Broncon is being sent to planet Godeena. This is a planet in which no research group has yet to return from. When an SOS signal is captured by the granddaughter of a military personnel, Broncon is named the man for the job. But Broncon will not be going in alone. In order to have any success, he will need to recruit some of the world's deadliest prisoners, people who have nothing left to lose. No one else is willing to sacrifice their lives for what is likely a suicide mission. Not only will Henry have to battle the wits of people who wish him dead, he is also fighting his own demons from the war with the Anscars. Will any of them have the strength that it takes to make it out alive? Read Godeena to find out. Because this book is so fast-paced, it really does get into spoiler territory very quickly, so I'm going to leave it at that for the plot in a nutshell. Just know that you're going in as a very military-based sci-fi where we have a past battle that has taken place. Our main character has a little bit of PTSD from the battle that had taken place prior and has been given a new mission. That mission is seemingly impossible and he needs to come up with a plan in order to be able to complete it to some degree of success. While I did have some issues with the execution of Godeena, I will admit that every time I picked it up, I was reminded of what made me want to get back into sci-fi as a genre in the first place. And it also reminded me of why I get excited when I read sci-fi books and why I want to continue exploring the genre. So every time I picked it up, I was not only immersed in the book that I was reading, but I was also thinking and getting excited about other books that I could pick up within the genre and create a TBR. I think I created a whole sci-fi TBR while reading this book. We do have some classic sci-fi tropes in here which are simple and they don't paint outside the box a whole hell of a lot, but they are enjoyable to read. Personally, I enjoyed the elements of space exploration, which I love in sci-fis. If I'm in space, I want to know what's going on, which is very different to me 18 months ago, but there you go. I also enjoyed some of the themes that were hinted at along the way and the ease of which this story was consumed. I picked this book up while I was reading The Eye of the World, I think it was, a little while ago, and it just slipped in so easily and it was easy to comprehend, and it was what I needed at the time when I was trying to get my head around a massive world that was, Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time. So it worked for me at the time that I read it. I also liked the military training sequences that we got to see within Godeena and some of the backstory that we were able to uncover along the way for some of our prisoners as well as our main protagonist. I think that Godeena has set itself up in a way to show the reader how much the author has learnt and has grown by the time the sequel comes out. And I think that's kind of beautiful, being able to see an author's progress along the way. So this is where we are for book one, and I am expecting, just from conversations with the author, to have my expectations then be blown out of the water for book two. So I am going to jump into a little bit of the critique here. Godeena was easy to follow, but it is likely to frustrate some readers, and here's why. This book is very much tell and not show. We are told what is happening on every page, and we don't get the chance to experience it for ourselves. Perhaps the most obvious example of this was in the military training sequences. We are being told that the prisoners are playing with XYZ weapons again. Each person then chose a weapon based on their previous experience and enjoyment levels as prisoners with weaponry, and then they were automatically good with that weapon before moving on to the next person. And there was no sort of learning curve that was described there. It was person A chose this weapon, move on to person B. And we would do that for 4 or 5 people, but we didn't get to experience how these people felt when they were holding something of power in their hands again after being imprisoned for years. We didn't get to feel a blowback or an aftershock. We didn't get to smell plasma as it hit the target. Simple things that could have been used to draw the reader in just were not utilized here, and I have had conversations with the author about that. Because of this, it was hard for me to care or relate to any of the characters and really want to get into the nitty-gritty of how they were feeling about the mission that we were going on. Now, granted, I can see in this book where the author has really tried to put some personality into the characters through the dialogue. Unfortunately, the speech between our crew did feel overly formal and forced throughout. This may be due to the fact that it's a translated work rather than English being the author's first language. I have experienced this before when an author's language hasn't been English, and it may translate differently in the native tongue. So it did feel very forced and clipped and formal as they were talking, and there wasn't a whole lot of personality that was brought out within the dialogue, in my opinion, but I can definitely see where the author has tried to do so. Now, I will say there is one character in this book which does have me interested, and that is Kris, which I believe, if I'm not mistaken, is the focus of book 2. Kris did hook me enough to see where their storyline was going due to being a split personality and having those lines of good prisoner versus bad prisoner play against each other throughout the book, and these were split quite well in my opinion, and I'm very interested to see where that character is going. The last thing I'll mention here, as something that might frustrate people, is the ease of which the story progressed. Every time there was an obstacle in the character's way, there would be a convenient solution for the sake of story progression. There wouldn't be conflict surrounding it. There was very little conflict at all within Godeena, even with the action sequences, even when we were fighting alien species along the way. For this type of tale, the elements within the book could have been built up rather easily, in my opinion, to heighten the stakes. Now, despite the critique, I wouldn't say Godeena is a bad book at all. In fact, it's far from it. It was quite enjoyable for me. I mentioned it earlier, it was extremely easy to read. If you can get past the narration style and the tell not show, it's a really good palate cleanser, which is what I used it for when I was reading it. If you're looking for something that doesn't take a whole lot of brain power, that provides that quick, exhilarating, easy sci-fi entertaining fix that's like bookish popcorn for your brain before you move on to the next thing, then you're probably going to have a good time here. I also want you to remember that this is a debut and a passion project for an indie author that still works full-time, so I'm inclined to forgive a lot of the learnings that will come from continuing to write within that space. I am interested to see how Cobbetts progresses and grows from the experience of writing and translating his first book, because the potential is absolutely there. I had an okay time with Godeena. Sure, there are some shortfalls with the book, but hey, it's a debut, so like I said, I'm inclined to forgive a lot. Have you thought about picking this one up? I, of course, will leave the author's links and the links to the book in the description box down below. I'd recommend it if you're looking for a bit of brain candy, a bit of sci-fi popcorn to get you on your way for the next book. It was a bit of fun. If you like the content, give it one of those. If you want to see more of it, click subscribe at your will. I'll catch you in the next video. Ciao.